So welcome to the meeting. This meeting will go over like game pitch goals and also what's an MVP. So this meeting will kind of help you develop your pitches and kind of figure out scoping. But we'll get to that. Just one announcement. This Friday we have a project management workshop. If you're pitching a game, I would highly recommend coming to this. It'll teach you about like leadership skills for your game pitch and just in general for any other game development projects that you would like to do. This will be on Friday, September 5th, so this Friday from 3 to 5 online on Discord.
It's also a like a GitHub desktop workshop too. So if you need help with that, please come to that.
All right, so goal of this club. I wonder what this game is called. This club is called. It's called the Game Design and Development Club. But what is game design? So game design encompasses all aspects that go into the development of a game. So this includes programming, art, music and sound effects, writing, and gameplay, and more. But these will be the main aspects that we focus the most in this club. Programming, you might think it's just, the actual coding, but it actually encompasses a lot. It encompasses what kind of game engine you use. So different game engines are built for more different types of games. Programming languages, so, knowing which kind of programming language goes with your game engine and deciding which would be the best for your game itself. So this includes like C++, which is used in Unreal, GDScript, which is basically Python for Godot, so on and so on. Mechanics. So this is kind of what the player does in a game to make it fun. Gameplay features, same thing. And UI UX, so basically what the player sees in the game. So here are just some picture examples. A key part of programming is knowing how to work with other people when you're coding. It's a lot easier to code a game by yourself. Well, it's not easier, but with sharing the code it is because you're sharing with yourself. But GitHub is very valuable for sharing code with other people and making sure that it doesn't have any like conflicts, stuff like that. And this Friday we'll actually have a little section on GitHub Desktop, which is like the GUI version of GitHub. So if you're planning on programming, I highly recommend attending that as well. So art encompasses a lot of different fields, both in 3D and 2D. So this includes character design, backgrounds, props, and concept art. So it could be 3D, like a huge one that people use with Blender. Is that 2D? Yeah, that's 2D. That's concept art. So kind of like, not really the game itself, but a kind of a vision for what the game could look like. And there's some character design. Music and sound effects. So music and sound effects encompasses a soundtrack, so like the music, sound effects, Foley. So the difference between sound effects and Foley is like sound effects is kind of just like in general the sound you hear, but Foley specifically is sound effects that you make yourself. Ambience as well. It's kind of not necessarily music, but just some sound in the background. So like an ambience can include the Minecraft cave sounds. I'm sure you know those. Sorry, I didn't make these. I'm not dodgy. And Foley. This is an example of Foley. So kind of like if you want to recreate the sound of like bones breaking, you could use just like a melon. Writing is real fun. So writing includes writing the story of your game, dialogue, and lore. I'm sure a lot of people are fans of lore, and also world building. Those are kind of similar. So dialogue can include like dialogue trees. So instead of just having like straight questions and answers, maybe the way that the player answers will kind of change the way that the story goes. Regular dialogue and Dark Souls. Okay, what are the general club goals? In general, we want to teach you how to become well-rounded game designers. Of course, everyone's going to have their niche, but it's important that you do kind of become a little bit well-rounded. It's good to know. It's good to understand how each aspect works. So, because by understanding each aspect that goes into game development, members can kind of better understand the work that goes into a game and learn how to make their own. So how do we achieve these goals? How do we teach you these different aspects of game development? Our club hosts workshops, like the one this Friday, that delves deeper into each aspect of game design. So that's going to include programming, art, music and sound effects, and more. And the game pitches are a great hands-on experience for those who want to start making a game. For people who pitch, at the end of the semester, each game pitch team will need to present a minimum viable product. What is a minimum viable product? A minimum viable product is a version of a product with just enough features to be usable by early customers who can provide feedback for future product development. The key word in this is just enough features. An MVP is a basic version of the game with just the key gameplay features needed to gain interest in its development. And I think this is best described by the Extra Credits video, I'm sure you've heard of them, on what a minimum viable product is.
During the last 2 episodes, we've stressed how important it is to make your first game something small. But this is so important that this time we're going to dedicate the entire episode to it. This will serve you in good stead not only when you're creating your first game, but also when prototyping for anything else you do. In development, there's a term called minimum viable product, which refers to the smallest thing you can possibly make that'll still give you useful data once released. That should be your goal. Even when James is called in to work on a multi-million-dollar project that has a development time of 3 years, one of the first things he'll tell them is that if they don't have a prototype up in the first 3 weeks, they're doing it wrong. When you can actually play your game, you'll discover all sorts of things that you didn't account for when you were just designing the game in your head. You'll find edge cases where your mechanics are broken, or places where your game just falls apart. You'll find what's really engaging rather than just trying to build something that you hope is engaging, and you'll discover what will add the most to the experience you're creating. Okay, so you've heard me say cut and cut and cut, and that when you think you're done cutting, you're probably not done cutting, but you do have to stop cutting sometimes. So how do we determine when we're down to that minimum viable product? Well, this one is a bit tough, and you're going to get better at it with experience, but the basic idea is to find the absolute minimum set of features that won't affect core development. If you could cut a feature and still technically ship your game, it's probably not part of your minimum viable product. But because this is as much an art as it is a science, let's run through some examples so we're all on the same footing. Let's start with Super Mario Bros. What do we need in order to test if the fundamental gameplay of Super Mario Bros. Is engaging? What's the minimum that we can build and test before deciding if what we have is something worth expanding upon with additional features? Well, do we need Koopas? No. Fire flowers? Nope. Bowser? Nope. Pipes that you can climb down? No. Pipes at all? No. Water levels, mushrooms, hidden blocks, extra lives? No. So, what do we need? Well, for Mario, the minimum viable product is probably one level where you can move, jump, and fall into pits. That's it. If just that much is engaging, you'll be able to add all those other features later and make it even better. But if running along and jumping over pits doesn't feel good, Super Mario Bros. Simply doesn't work, no matter how many extra features you throw in. So you've got to make sure that that core is working first. Although, in this particular case, I'd probably throw in 2 other features that aren't strictly necessary, but they will make a big difference. First, a trigger which resets the level if the player falls into the pit, just so testing is easier, and to make sure that this aspect isn't just unpalatable to players. And second, the ability to change from walking to running, since the Mario jump mechanic is so dependent on the run button. But that's it. 1 level, 3 features, and you've got a game. Don't believe something this simple could be engaging? Well, set the character to auto-run and you've basically built Canabalt. When building your first game, or prototyping a larger one, you'll find that you can strip out all of the content, all of the things that aren't rules that control the play itself, but rather elements that are created out of those rules. So enemy types, levels, different weapons, all of that can usually get cut. You might want to include one thing from each category just to test the larger rules, but no more than that, because it's really easy to get mired down in making all of that content. And the truth is, games with lots of content but without a solid foundation are rarely good. Perhaps worse, as a creator, when your game's packed with content, it's generally harder to figure out why the foundation's not working. If you test your prototype with a lot of content thrown in, it'll be harder for players to put their fingers on exactly what it is that needs improvement, as all of that content just clutters what's wrong, and they'll be more likely to tell you about bad pieces of content rather than the underlying reasons why that content didn't create a positive experience. It just adds complexity in a situation where you really need to be honing your game's core foundation. Okay, so let's try another one. Old school JRPGs. Now this one can fool people because most designers tend to think of these games in terms of content rather than gameplay. It's easy to get caught up in the story you want to tell, or the massive lists of items and enemies. But if the player has to slog through 80 hours of weak gameplay in order to access that story you've got in mind, you've done your player a disservice. In fact, that's some of what's contributed to the decline in the popularity of traditional JRPGs this decade. So take a game like Final Fantasy IV. Here, I would cut everything but the menu-based combat system. I would even cut out all the graphics. Monsters can just be words on the screen. That's really all you need to test the system. Now, many of you might object, saying, but that doesn't work. I can't make that engaging without the content. This is actually great, though. It immediately tells us that we should probably find a more robust system. Alright, let's try one more. This time, let's look at Ikaruga. Here, we could probably cut down to the color switching mechanic, an enemy which switches color randomly and shoots random bullet patterns, or maybe randomly chooses from a small list of pre-built bullet patterns, as that wouldn't be too hard to construct. Also, you'll need the ability for the player to move and to shoot, a counter which ticks upward as you shoot the enemy, and a death mechanic that simply resets the game when the player gets hit. This will get you all the player behavior you need to find out if your game's engaging. Your players will try to dodge and shoot the enemy while attempting to take advantage of the color swapping system as much as possible. That's all you need. Hopefully that helps you frame your thinking about just how small your first project should be. Now I'm going to give you a quick and dirty list of game genres, ordered by how difficult they are to create a minimum viable product for. And this is only going to apply to digital games. Some of these genres are actually much easier to build pen and paper or board games for. Also, this list isn't by any means absolute. As game engines change, this list is going to become outdated, but it should give you a place to start at least. So, game genres in order of difficulty to produce a minimum viable product, from simplest to most difficult. Racing game, top-down shooter, 2D platformer, color-matching puzzle game, 2D puzzle platformer, 3D platformer, FPS, JRPG, fighting game, action-adventure, Western RPG, RTS. I'm leaving out point-and-click adventure games here, as those games are entirely built out of content. So while getting a point-and-click game up and running is relatively easy, getting anything together that'll actually tell you if you're onto something engaging is a lot harder. You'll notice I'm also leaving out anything networked or multiplayer, as that generally multiplies the complexity. Honestly, I would just recommend avoiding multiplayer stuff entirely for your first game. And again, don't think of these genres in terms of the games you know. When I say racing game, don't think Gran Turismo. Think 2 gray blocks on a black background with acceleration and collision mechanics. That is all you need to hit that minimum viable product or prototype stage, where you can really start to get it out there and play it and learn what's needed to improve it. You can always build from there later and add more cool features, but your game will be better off for having spent the time testing and refining the foundation of your game idea. This is way more productive than dreaming up a project which is far too big to ever tackle. Hopefully that helps you decide where to start and how far to scope down. Join us on the next episode for what to do once you're done with your game.
I think that video explains way better than I could what an MVP is, but in essence, it's just making sure that your game's prototype is just the bare minimum that makes it unique, you know? Extra Credits makes some really, really good videos about game development, and I would highly recommend checking them out. So if you'd like, here's a QR code to take you to the full playlist. That's about like the actual game itself, but how do you pitch a game, which is what's going to open up today. So every semester, club members have the opportunity to pitch ideas for video games that they would like to develop for the club. After those game pitches are presented, members, so you guys, will join teams based on those ideas. Any club member can also pitch a game. By the end of the semester at our club banquet, so like early December or so, teams will present their MVPs and their development process. Now, this is the main thing. We are not expecting a fully polished game by the end of the semester. Absolutely not. To be truthful, a lot of us struggle to create a game by the end of the semester. It's no big deal. It's not a big deal at all if you can't finish. Your personal life, your school, and your work will always come first. Please do not feel pressured to put out a AAA game by the end of the semester. Game development is hard, which is crazy, but it is. So don't push yourself to do something that you know is... If you can't do it, that's totally fine. There's no shame in that. Do you have an idea for a game? Submit a team lead application by September 7th. So that is this coming Sunday, I believe. Games will be pitched on September 16th, so don't miss out, especially if you're pitching. But most members, if you're planning to join a game, I would also really recommend you come to this meeting too. Prior to the game pitch meeting, the board will speak to applicants to learn about their game pitch. So we'll just kind of ask you like what times you're available, and we'll kind of ask you some details about your game. We're not going to interrogate you, and we're not going to, tell you not to pitch your game, but we will kind of help you figure out like scope and just making sure it's something you can feasibly make within this semester. And here is a QR code for that. All right. So what should be in your game pitch? Obviously the title, the genre, a 2-sentence pitch for your game. So a 2-sentence pitch is essentially how would you describe your game idea to someone you're like meeting in an elevator, for example, like an elevator pitch. So it should be the kind of most basic but also attention-grabbing summary of your game. And you also include a more full summary of your game as well in your game pitch. A key thing is to include the gameplay features that should be included in your MVP and who you need to accomplish this. So this will kind of help other members of the club figure out which pitches they want to join. Maybe they'll want to join a pitch that needs programmers if they're a programmer. They join a pitch that needs artists, they're an artist, and so on. Even voice actors. We have some pitches in the past who've had voice actors. So I think the best way to demonstrate this would be an example, and I will hand this over to Erin for the game pitch from last semester. Plague.
Hi everyone. Yeah, I pitched Plague last semester of spring. So what I have it here is an action fiction, and I provided some concept art. I did a short summary of the game and some illustrations to capture your eyes and to hopefully come join my game, so make sure it looks pleasing, but also it does not have to have this much work put into it. Just enough pictures or sketches will do as well. I even provided some concept art before I even pitched. So if you have idea you really like to do and you have some ideas, I recommend adding that to your slides. Again, I finished sprites too. You do not have to go above and beyond. So, and then here's a slide where I explain the gameplay I planned for the game, which is basically a Papa's Pizzeria-esque type game, but it takes place in medieval time. Okay, I even provided some gifts and even some inspiration will help people understand the idea of your game, for aesthetics, gameplay, and story-wise. So I used Fear and Hunger, Papa's Pizzeria, and Sweeney Todd. So MVP is the basis of what I need for the game to work, and the main gameplay for the game would be a point and click medicine making gameplay type, And I also specified which game engine I would use, which is RenPy. Make sure you mention which game engine you're going to use or think you're going to use. You do not need to have it set in stone, but just have an idea.
By the way, if you need some help figuring out what game engine you should use, you should totally ask us when we kind of do our little pitch meeting.
Yeah. I even added in some stretch goals, goals I want to have after I finish the MVP. To hopefully reach onto that probably the next semesters. So if you have more ideas for it, but it's not MVP worthy, you should totally add that. Okay. And then I put who do I need section. Again, if you need more people to help you make your game, you're not that good at programming or you need people to make music, I recommend adding the people you need because I'm not that great at programming, so I put in programmers and the other things too. And then a thank you slide and info for contact. Be sure you add that too. And that should be how it goes.
Alrighty, yeah. So that's kind of a good example of what a game pitch should be. Again, you don't need to do that much. Erin went totally above and beyond, but as long as you get the general idea, especially the MVP and the people you need. On that note, how would you learn kind of the things you need to pitch a game? So the key one is the project management workshop and GitHub workshop this Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. online in Discord. Like I said, if you're pitching a game, I highly recommend joining this one because this one will kind of help you figure out how to have some leadership skills, how to organize people, how to plan, stuff like that. And then it'll also include a little mini GitHub desktop workshop for anyone who plans on programming, because it's a very valuable tool for programmers, especially those in teams. In terms of other deadlines, the game pitch submission deadline will be this coming Sunday, September 7th at 11:59 p.m. In terms of following meetings, we would very much like to have a room. Unfortunately, we're kind of a little bit up in the air with that, but no matter what, we'll have these meetings online on Discord as well. So next Tuesday, we'll have some icebreakers. So just so you can get to know other people in the club, especially if you're having a game pitch, kind of, get to know everybody a little. And on that note, we'll also have a game night social that Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. And the game pitch meeting, so this is when you'll present your game. Ideally, have a slide presentation as well, will be the next Tuesday after that. So 2 weeks from now, on the 16th, at U Hour. Tentatively online on Discord, but hopefully we can get a room. Let's hope. Following that, we'll have game pitch check-ins. So check-ins are a thing we do, or just kind of making sure that, you're getting some stuff done, but that's not a pressure to always have stuff done. School happens, so it's not a big deal if you don't have anything to show for check-ins, but we do have them. And the next coming one will be Tuesday, September 23rd at U Hour. And then following that I don't think that date is right, but it will be the Friday of that week from 3 to 5 p.m. We'll have a concept art workshop for 2D and pixel art. More information will be provided about these as they come along throughout the weeks, so make sure to stay tuned to the announcements channel. All right, if you kind of want some more examples of like finished products for games, we actually have a new demo reel for games made last semester.
New perspective gain from all the pain and stress. And when I do come back, I'm stronger than ever before. So don't disturb in the peace. Look into my eyes. Now tell me the things you love about behind my back. If you miss me, our heart is hard to be down. It's too late for our energies is going
All right, nice show off of all the games we made last year. So if you want to check out all those games, go check them out on itch.io with this link, and also check out Absolute Momentum's trailer, which is a game that is actually going to be on Steam soon. So I highly recommend checking the trailer and wishlisting it. Okay, so that's the end of the meeting. Feel free to join our Steam group. Do we do a lot with it? No, but you should join it anyway. And also join our Instagram or follow our Instagram. We post just meeting announcements and meeting announcements. And if you didn't sign in, feel free to sign in here. But other than that, that is the end of the meeting. If you have any questions, feel free to ask a member of the board, or if you want to pitch, feel free to do so. That will be in the upcoming announcement thing. Yeah.